Hello and welcome to another episode of Historic Hindsight. I'm John, that's Tom, and today we're talking about Bear the Bounty Hunter.
That's right, Johnny. Bear the Bounty Hunter, and if Bear the Bounty Hunter you mean a Southerner who turned against the Confederacy and went on a murder rampage, then yes, that's exactly who we're talking about.
I mean, well, not what I was expecting, but that sounds amazing. So yeah,
sounds even better.
let's talk about that instead of this Bear Bounty Hunter.
Yep. So remember how history tells us that everyone in the South just loved the idea of the Confederacy and fought for their rights.
No, everybody, 100%.
And that 100%, and that no bad was ever done by the Confederates to its civilians or from its civilians back to the Confederacy, and it was just a magical world of fantasy, love, and joy in the Confederacy. Yeah.
Well, like most places, everybody was on the same area of the political spectrum, and so there was no need for anybody to have any hostilities towards each other because everybody thought the exact same thing, right?
Yep. That's or the exact opposite, because today we're going to be talking about what happens when the Confederate Home Guard kills a man's father and brother and sets him off on a revenge path, teaming up with escaped slaves, Indians, and whites to become a Robin Hood legend of North Carolina, and for a very, very long time was the most wanted person in North Carolina's history for very long time of North Carolina's history.
So hold it, Okay, so he was in the South.
Yes.
The Confederate Home Guard killed his father?
Father and brother, yes.
Who were also assuming in the South?
They're in the South. Yeah, they're not Confederate.
All right, let's find out why the Confederate Home Guard murdered one of their own.
Oh, yeah, this is the tale of Henry Berry Lowry and the Lowry Gang. So pre-war year, so pre-Civil War, the Lowry family was living in North Carolina. Henry was going to be born in 1845, circa 1845-ish. We don't have a specific date. To an Allen and Mary Lowry, and is a mixed-race, free person of color. And I have to make this because, again, to European and other American listeners, free person of color means you aren't white, but you aren't a slave.
Yeah.
So this is basically the category for mixed breeds, Mexican and white descent, or Native American and white descent, or even possibly African American and white descent, assuming that you were a freedman and not entitled to be a slave. Because if you were mixed race African American, you could still definitely be a slave. Look at all of Jefferson's children; they were all still slaves. So, but if you were, usually that referred to like Native American and white mix, or Mexican American and white mix. Yeah.
And I imagine that these what are they called again? The
free people of color.
Free people of color. I imagine they were treated with the same dignity, respect, and rights as white people.
Yeah, sure.
Because,
sure.
Or is that why they have their own distinction?
That's why I'm pretty sure that's why they have their own distinction.
Their classification.
He is actually half Lumbee Indian. So, like I said, he's brown, not white. Even though when you look at the picture that we'll put up, he looks fairly white.
Not white enough, though.
Not white enough. Not white enough. He was one of 12 children, so Jesus Christ, Alan, stay off of Mary. I don't know if they were all like the same mom, but Jesus Christ, that's a lot of kids.
I mean, even so. I mean, get on birth control or something, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but to be fair, though, Allen did have a 350-acre multi-use farm, which he worked and had his 12 children work on. So clearly, you needed the children. They were just employed. Yeah, they needed employees.
Farm hands.
Yeah, he needed employees, so that's why you just keep popping out those children.
Yeah, and 6 more years, and they'll be riding pushing the tractor or whatever. I don't know, the plow.
Yeah, no tractor.
Whatever the hell.
Yeah.
Probably not a tractor.
No, not a tractor yet. But this was his life. I mean, and if the war didn't happen, this is what he would have been doing, just farming on his dad's ranch, and that would have been about it.
Not a bad life.
Not a bad life, but enter the Civil War, and right from the start, the Confederate States, if you've been watching our Civil War in hindsight, you'll know that they were always short of supplies, men, and equipment, and right off the bat, within the first month of the war kicking off, they had conscription, which is, the draft. So basically...
and he would have been ripe age for that, I imagine, right? 1945 to, 60? So...
Yeah, except there's that whole... free person of color thing. They're not going to they don't want you to fight, but they're going to conscript you into the manual labor department to build fortifications and all that kinds of fun stuff.
Right.
which is what happens to the Lowry family. Most of the Lowry family does get conscripted into to manual labor service, and they're forced to build a lot of the forts around Cape Fear, including Fort Fisher. These are just all, yeah. I mean, they're paid.
Oh, okay.
They're paid
with Confederate dollars.
With Confederate dollars at a very, very low rate of Confederate dollars, even at that. So yeah,
they're useless anyway, so it doesn't even matter how many they give them. It's like Shroot bucks.
Yeah, it definitely was not compensatory towards their work or whatever. Labor obviously was not, like I said, was not compensated appropriately, and there really wasn't a matter of choice in this. And I keep saying no choice in this because they were being forced. Now, how were they being forced? They were being forced by the Confederate Home Guard, which is the law and order wing of the Confederate Army. So basically,
so like military police type
sort
deal?
of. So what happens is with the Home Guard, you get one or two people who are in the Confederate Home Guard. You get the people who are unable to be frontline infantry, so maybe overweight, maybe have one leg already blown off from the war,
flat feet or something,
maybe just be a little
like
bit older, or it's all the rich people's children that they don't want to send into the front line.
Gotcha.
So they put them as their service is being in the Home Guard.
Right.
So lots of appropriate, no power trips at all going on with the Confederate Home Guard. No, that doesn't.
No,
that doesn't
certainly not from wealthy people who have been owning slaves and are now having them taken away, and then you give them power over these other military, your peers, but
your peers, yeah.
You're going to be in charge of making sure that they do their job.
Mm-hmm. And so by law and order and keeping law and order, part of their job was violently hunting down deserters,
of course,
stealing food for the army, and enforcing the conscription. Right from the get-go, the Lowry family wasn't the most happy or enthused about conscription.
Yeah, not open to the idea of becoming all of a sudden slaves.
All of a sudden slaves, and so they did tend to buck back at it a little bit, just by, like, we're just not going to show up, or we're going to go ahead and gladly on our 350-acre farm hide people who don't want to work, or hide runaway Confederate soldiers. And as the war progresses, they start to eventually hide and help supply Union soldiers who've escaped from prison camps
on their way back. So it's similar to like, because no.
Not on their way back. These escaped Union soldiers are going to form a guerrilla war unit, like a little military unit, and continue to fight in the South. Because it wasn't the easiest. Like, yeah, you could escape the prison camps, but it was not the easiest thing to try to get back up north.
Right. No, I read a story about a guy who did just that in the Civil War, and like it was wild. It was on trains, there was starvation, it was finding little cabins in the fields that were owned by slaves and getting overnight stuff, and like it was
it's like the reverse
it's the exact
Underground
same,
Railroad.
Well, it's the same. I mean, it is the Underground Railroad. It's the same thing. They use the same types of resources.
Yeah, so soldiers could try to do that. They could try to escape.
But instead,
and get back
they're like,
north,
we
or they're
escaped,
like,
but we're gonna get these motherfuckers back. Okay.
So they just stayed in the local area and were wreaking havoc, raiding farms,
just guerrilla warfare,
guerrilla warfare, just all that
a
stuff.
Small band of misfits and rebels, but not rebels.
Exactly. No,
the good guys.
Well, the good guys, rebels to the rebels.
This makes it tricky.
They're like reverse rebels.
Yeah, good rebels.
So the Home
like
Guard,
Star Wars, good rebels.
Good rebels, yeah. So the Home Guard, it didn't take them very long, except that's not the best because we're going to blow up a Death Star. But whatever. Anyways, the Home Guard didn't take them long to accuse the Native Americans of hiding deserters and draft dodgers, and claimed, which to be fair, they were doing all this stuff.
But they also, to be fair, they were going to blame them for it anyway.
But they were blaming for it anyway.
So you might as well do it if you're going to get blamed for it. Do the crime,
Yep. And the Lowry gang also had a tendency to hide runaway slaves in addition to the runaway soldiers and
sure.
And
I mean, they're helping people out. Like, they're just the good guys.
Now, through the war up until 1864, the Lowry gang was mostly nonviolent. They weren't like actively attacking Confederate soldiers.
Now, by the Lowry gang, this is just that family.
That family. It's basically the family. Yeah.
Okay.
The gang does start to take on
get some other stragglers or whatever, some other people. But
once Henry takes over for the gang grows with outside membership. But for right now, it's mostly just the Lowry family. Now, like I said, they were mostly nonviolent in 1864, hiding those runaway slaves, but and largely they stayed out of the fighting. But because they're hiding all these people, and because the Home Guard is suspicious of them, they start ramping up the pressure on the family, so to speak, making them, do the conscription labor, harassing them for more livestock, more food, all that kind of fun stuff.
Essentially doing the thing you do when you're punishing somebody for something you suspect is true but can't prove for whatever, because it's a 350-acre farm, I would imagine, and they've gotten good at it.
And this punishment starts to ramp up when a James P. Barnes, who is a white neighbor of Allen Lowry, accuses Allen of stealing hogs. Barnes gets the Home Guard involved to investigate, which got the Home Guard to start harassing the Lowry family even more. Being annoyed at this, Henry Lowry, on his own, without his father's approval or permission, decides to go to the Barnes home and kills James Barnes on December 21st, 1864.
Whoa!
So Henry's amping it up. Like, you're going to accuse my dad of stealing a hog, I'm going to go ahead and kill you.
I'm going to murder you an accusation of hog theft. It makes me kind of think that maybe he did steal the hogs.
By the way, here at Historic Hindsight, we take we probably did. We take historical figures and mythical figures, and we tell the good and the bad. So I'm not covering any of this crap up. I'm going to tell you, Henry Lowry wasn't a great person.
He totally
just murdered somebody.
Straight up cold-blooded murder.
In January 1865, Henry Lowry is going to commit his second murder when he kills a Home Guard and conscription officer, James Brantley Harris, for harassing the women of the Lowry family. And now this one isn't so bad, because by harassing the family, I mean,
raping.
Yeah. All that fun stuff. All that comes with, harassing.
Sexually harassing.
harassing.
They left out a word.
Yeah, they did.
Okay, that one's more justified.
That one's a little more
justified. It feels like he got a taste of blood. Now, this is Henry, is the son that he's like he's who we're talking about. So 2 murders under his belt.
2 murders under his belt.
And just, is this something that people knew he did and they couldn't find him or catch him, or is this something we found out later?
No, I mean the family knows he did it. The Lowry family knows he did it. The community,
they're not going to be snitches.
They're not going to be stitches. But obviously, with these several deaths in a short period of time, it does get the Home Guard a little suspicious of the Lowry family, even more than they already were. So they form a posse and start to search the Lowry home, while Allen and Henry's brother William were at home. They find, allegedly, several firearms in the home, which free people of color were forbidden to own in North Carolina due to the Nat Turner Rebellion in 1831, which will be a future episode for us to talk about later.
So I assume that's where a bunch of free people of color took up arms and against somebody.
Basically. So now if you're brown, you can't have guns. Yeah, now if you're brown, you can't have guns. So all the way since 1831, if you're brown, you're not able to own a gun in North Carolina. So these guys had guns in the house. So clearly, they must be evil, awful felons, and they had
double murders. To be fair,
Henry is.
Henry,
they didn't get Henry wasn't home, so they didn't get Henry.
Yeah. Wait.
Allen was home, and William, Henry's brother, were home, but Henry wasn't.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Okay, so they didn't have a murder on their hands. It was just the other two. Gotcha.
Just the other two. When they find, Henry, not Henry, when they find Allen and William at home, and they find these guns, they have a complete and total on-the-spot fair trial.
Spot trial. That's right.
On the spot trial.
On the spot. So, and I don't know if it was the case then, obviously, but today I assume we have police officers and then judges because the police officers are not meant to be a judge. They are meant to bring suspects to a judge to be tried.
Yeah, they can arrest you on charges, and then the judge has to.
But they don't decide what those charges are, or which ones are enforced, or they say this is what we suspect them of doing, and then the judge determines whether or not they did.
Yeah, the judge determines whether or not they had enough evidence to be arrested, and then determines at a trial, the jury determines whether or not.
But this time it was the arresting officers performing those duties.
Yes.
And what did they come, what was their conclusion that they came to with these people that they didn't like and wanted to abuse and
Yep.
make
Guilty.
their lives
Guilty, and hang him in the front yard on March 3rd, 1865. Just like
guilty,
found the gun,
and then
guilty,
immediate death.
Yeah, immediate death.
That
yeah.
a free person of color owning a gun carried a death penalty.
Death penalty.
Or did
North
they
Carolina,
go overboard?
Well, I'm sure they went overboard, but yeah, I mean, it's North Carolina.
I guess
so.
clearly it did carry a death penalty, at least in this case. But I was curious about the books. But I guess the books don't matter.
I don't think
it's whatever these police officers not police officers, the
home guard
decide that you.
This is even worse because this is even worse because this is not the police. This is the military coming in.
This is
Yep.
It'd be like if today the unmarked vans just started snatching people off the street and we never knew what happened to them. Like that would be just insanity.
It's crazy.
That would never be allowed to happen.
Henry was allegedly watching from the bushes outside while all this transpires. So
so he wasn't there because he was hiding in the bushes?
Yeah, he was hiding, which doesn't really paint the greatest picture for our hero here, Henry. But
no, that's a heady play. He knew what was going on. I'm sorry.
Well,
is he hanging from a tree or is he going to exact revenge?
He's going to exact revenge because
sounds like he won that little battle.
After Alan and William are dead, Henry by default becomes head of the Lowry gang, which, like I said, was mostly comprised of the Lumbee Indians, but he would also take on a George Applewhite, who was a runaway slave, as his chief lieutenant, and a local white youth named Zachariah McClellan. So, he's got a couple of free people of color that are with him, a couple of African Americans that are with him, or runaway slaves, and a white dude or two.
So people die, and he builds his team. He's like, all right, this got real.
Yeah.
Now, the two people that died, it was his father and brother?
Brother, yes. That died.
One father, one brother. Okay.
One father, one of the 12
his
siblings.
11 brothers.
After his father's death, he swore to take revenge for the deaths of his father and brother. And as for the remainder of the war, like the month that it remained.
Right, yeah, because this was 1964, right?
1865.
1865, yeah.
March 3rd, 1865, when his dad died.
When they got killed. And then they surrendered.
April. Yeah, so there's a month. Yeah,
literally a month.
Yeah, there's like a month. Just like towards the end of April, though. So, and there's some like
all right,
almost
2 months.
Well, yeah, month. So for the rest of the war, what he did is he would steal from businesses and rich families. And at least according to legend, he was a Robin Hood character where he would give some of those funds back to the community. And by funds, mainly what I mean is actually feeding the poor. Like he wasn't really actually giving money as much as just like helping feed. Just feed people.
I mean, if you assume that if you give people who are starving money, that's what they'd be using for it anyway. So I mean, it's the same type of deal. It's just whether he's stealing the food or using the jewels and money he gets to buy
and give it.
It's all the same.
Yeah, pretty much.
Good guy.
Also,
murderer, but good guy.
Murderer, but his robberies, he had a little bit of an odd mentality with his robberies where he did legitimately try to only target people that could afford to be robbed. So it was a war against the rich more than it was anything else. If you were able to show that you were too poor, he would leave you alone, and his gang would actually return the stolen horses and wagons after they were done using them. So like if they went and did a robbery and stole your wagon,
you know why that is?
They'd bring
how
back.
Expensive it is to keep a horse alive?
Yeah.
Holy cow. They just didn't want any of that. So so this is the people that are they were jewelry store thieves. They know that everything in that jewelry store is covered by insurance, and they can go in there and they're going to get minimal resistance, get the jewelry, and get out. And everything's covered by insurance, no harm, no foul. They get their money. Because there are insurance fraud cases where jewelry stores or other operations will pay a robber to rob them to collect all the insurance from the robbery. So that's what they were doing.
That's what they're doing. Yep. Now, the Lowry Wars themselves don't really spark until after the Civil War is concluded. Like I said, the gang doesn't really form until a month before the war ends. And
yeah. So and at that point, it's a recruitment phase. You got to figure out everything about it. So not much of a gang by the time the war ends. But I'm guessing he's still mad.
Yeah, he's still very much mad, and things get worse for the South because what happens in the South after the Civil War is over is we do have, initially there's all right, you're the appointed governor, you're the appointed governor, you're the appointed governor, but we're going to have elections. So as these states start to come back into the fold, they are given fair and legit elections where they elect the Democrats that rebelled against us.
Right, yeah, they're going to
the power
elect the exact
struggle
same people that they
goes
had before.
right back to what it was. And that's exactly what happens. So during
like,
Reconstruction...
yeah, I know we lost, but we're still super racist and still super want our slaves and still super like that guy that says we should have them.
So during Reconstruction, the entire South, you get things like the KKK being formed. The exploitation of brown people is still going on in the South. There are laws.
Today,
there's the Jim Crow laws, all that stuff that starts to come out of the Reconstruction eras, all that fun stuff. So, anyways, with the KKK being formed, Lowrys were actually being targeted because they're still free people of color.
Right.
So they're still being treated as second-class citizens.
I'm sure they didn't forget that the whole murder thing.
So while all this Reconstruction starts to go on, the Lowry gang is ramping up their robberies of the rich, who are the people who are in control of the politics, who are the ones that are treating them like second-class citizens. On December 7th, 1865, Henry's going to marry Rhoda Strong, and at the wedding in front of several several hundred guests, Henry is going to be arrested by former members of the Home Guard.
Come on. Wait, former members?
Because the Confederacy
who now what?
Who are now local militia.
How?
Right?
Militia. Militia,
they
did it themselves.
But
we're accepting that that's the case and that
so
they are that.
They have a warrant, which was not a legal warrant.
No.
And they're arresting him for the for the murder of James Barnes, which he did do.
Sure, but at his
the
wedding.
Warrant's not. Yeah, the warrant's not legal.
Come on. Like think about his Robin Strong,
Rhoda
Strong. Think about Rhoda. Everything she's been through. Now this.
She doesn't get a wedding night with her husband. Come on.
Real bullshit.
It is some real bullshit.
I just like the Confederate Home Guard, militia, whatever, even less now. They're the worst. Who does that?
Arrest somebody at their wedding. Well, it's one of those situations where they couldn't find him, and now he's getting married in front of several hundred guests. It kind of becomes obvious.
So
where he's
I
going to be.
assume it's like the movies in which something like this happens, and there is a gunfight, and he escaped. Nobody got shot, and he got away on a helicopter. And went to
But what does happen is he winds up going to jail, and one of his gang members smuggles him in a file where he literally files the bars off the jail cell and climbs out the window and escapes to his freedom. This is the most stupid Hollywood, Wild West, with a file.
And not a single guard checked on him in the 8 hours that it probably took to file through however many bars you would need to. You got to do at least 2 bars. You got to do 2 bars, right?
Yeah, and it's not it's not like a jail cell like they are nowadays, where it's many. This is like a small town jail cell. There's 3 cells in this place.
Right?
Come on.
Yeah.
How do you?
Just the guy.
Did the sheriff just go home? He had to have gone home. There could not have been a single
this is
like
those in Red Dead Redemption, where you escape, where you have to pull out the jail bars with a crank or whatever. There's this little tiny thing, and it's literally one big room, and then the bars set up, and you get 3 to 4, maybe 5 if you're planning it well.
Yeah, that's
cells,
gotta be it.
And that's what it is. And he filed through bars and escaped.
Yeah, he filed through bars and escaped. The interim governor, Jonathan Worth, placed a $300 bounty on his head, dead or alive, so they're kind of serious that they wanted him. By all that came out of this, though, was that not a lot, but for over the next 3 years after he escapes, he's going to have a murder theft raid, mostly through Robinson County. So he's now ramping it up to. He's upping his game now to murder.
Okay, so we're heroificationing or whatever a serial murderer.
Well, sort of. When you find
and we're just justifying it because of how who he did it to. Is that what we're doing, Tommy?
Yeah. Well, yes. So
we're saying it's okay because they were bad guys. This is Dexter, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes, this is Dexter. He would escape capture on multiple occasions, including hiding from federal troops that were sent to specifically capture him in the swamps. While in the swamps, he took
swamps.
This is great. He took an overturned boat. So he took a boat, he overturned it, and then he hid under the boat for the oxygen, and then just walked in the swamps with that boat over his head. This is Pirates of the Caribbean, in the movie. Remember when they did that shit? It's the same thing. It's the same thing.
I mean, it works though. I did it in summer camp. You can do that. But they weren't
why is that boat moving by itself?
It's a weird boat. That's cruising, that boat is. And upside down, too. How strange.
Crazy. I got so many damn fucking flies in this place today. Anyway, so yeah. Now, this is where the murder is. One of the murders that he does do, I don't really care about, is because his most wanted phase comes after in North Carolina after he kills John Taylor, who is the presumed head of the KKK in North Carolina. So, okay, deal.
F that guy.
Fine. Yeah, screw that guy. So again, he's murdering the rich elite in the South that were responsible for the war and all that fun stuff. Anyway,
and the KKK,
and the KKK and all that stuff. So
and yeah, that's how you do it. You know what? If I'm sure if people like him continued to kill the head of the KKK every single time a head of the KKK was named, eventually it would be disbanded and disappear, and there'd be no KKK until a future president brought it back.
Governor William P. Holden, now of North Carolina, would declare Henry an outlaw on November 10th, 1868. Not that he already wasn't. I mean, like, you know, the new governor coming in, he's got to make his mark.
Him too. Yeah, put his picture up now.
And Henry would actually turn himself in because by this point, Henry liked to just goad on the authorities and like...
He's like, I'm just going to escape again, right? So...
Yeah, and Johnny, you're right. That's exactly what he does.
On.
He turns himself
Another
in.
file or what?
The family reports and stuff that I found, I couldn't see how he escaped the second time, but he did get to jail and escaped the second time from jail.
I mean, you got to imagine it was a similar situation.
Like I said, and he's just, like I said, he's just fucking with the local authorities at this point. But over the next 10 months, 10 police guard members and 1 Lowry gang member are going to be killed over 10 months in his continued rage and rampage. So, but again, he's going after like
he knows who he's targeting.
Yeah,
right? These are not robberies that escalated to, oh shit, I didn't think you were home, somebody's home, and then
he's killing former home guard members. Yeah,
he is targeting people and going on a very specific serial killer murdering spree.
Yep, 2 of his gang members are going to be arrested and found guilty. 8 members are going to be arrested. 2 of them are going to be found guilty, but both that are found guilty are going to wind up escaping the Wilmington jail. And I imagine that some of these jail escapes are like actual like local, because you go to any small town. You've got rich, you've got poor.
Yeah.
If the gang is going after the rich, the poor is who's always out and about. I guarantee you, go to the Brazil jail. In that jail, there's gonna be some poor people who are working as like janitorial staff.
Oh yeah.
Or even jailers, and they're like,
the members of the force.
And they're like, you know what?
I like what you're
I'm
doing,
just gonna
kid.
go on a coffee break.
Yeah.
Hope you don't take the keys that are right here.
Right. Yeah, they just kind of walk by a little bit, and I banged my hip, and the keys flew off right by him, and I didn't notice. But then I went on my break, and whoo, boy, Mama's cooking was good, so I had to take a big old number 2, and it took a while. And I came back, and they were gone. What are you gonna do?
By 1870, things had gotten so bad that the U.S. military was brought in, which, of course, wasn't uncommon for Reconstruction and across the South anywhere because there was so much, like, KKK terrorism going on. Local gangs fighting back against the KKK terrorism. Like, military was brought in all the time.
I mean, yeah, that makes sense because you're dealing with what once was a hostile, non-nation, whatever the heck.
A hostile group of citizens,
yeah. And now... They're still hostile. They just lost a war. Yeah. And so, of course, you're going to need to have a continued military presence in a lot of these areas to make sure that, we don't have a second civil war. Until at least, 150 years later or whatever.
Yep. So the U.S. military was brought in. Their first attempt to capture Lowry gang, they actually brought in an artillery battery on November 12th, 1870, with the hopes that the presence of an artillery battery would stop the gang from, like, here's a bunch of cannons in town.
Yeah, they're just flexing here.
And it didn't work.
Oh no, they called their bluff on it.
Called their bluff. Failed to stop the fighting. In 1871, the General Assembly offered $12,000, or the equivalent to $250,000 today, for a reward for Henry Lowry. They said $12,000. Get this guy
dead or alive.
Dead or alive. $12,000.
Holy shit, that's a. All right, I imagine people started to take it seriously by then, right? Like,
a Colonel Francis Marion,
even an ally, that's life-changing.
That's life-changing money. Yeah, that's definitely life-changing money. A Colonel Francis Marion Wishart would organize a militia to hunt down the Lowry. This is the second big military coup here. His brilliant idea this time was to arrest and detain the Lowry men's wives, which
Why? I'm sorry.
wives. Yeah, he was gonna arrest all the wives, and that would force. That would I did say that would force the gang to have to come back in.
Just a bit of a polygamist. Okay.
I'm pretty not his wife. The Lowry gangs.
The
gangs,
wives of all the
men's.
gangs. Okay,
all
I
the
misunderstood.
men's,
I'm like,
no,
holy shit.
No, all the men's wives.
Gotcha.
Wishart must not have gotten the memo about the second guy that Henry killed, that he killed because he was messing with the women.
Yeah.
He must not have got that memo don't mess with the women. Don't mess with Southern women. Like
I mean,
first off, the Southern women will fight you. And second off, the men really like these other women.
Yeah, you don't want either side of that coin.
No,
guarantee it.
You don't. So Henry is going to write a letter to the colonel, which states, and I quote, "Release the women, or the bloodiest times will be here than ever was before. The life of every man will be in jeopardy." Wishart promptly released the women. He said, "All right."
That is how you fucking threaten somebody.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to take your wives and see what you do. Oh.
Release
God,
the wives.
You'll rip my throat out.
Every man in the city, his life is in jeopardy if you do not release these women.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, that's like that. Yeah, he's like, I'm going to spoon your eyeballs out and make you watch while I do it too.
Yep.
Like, come at me.
So when the women are released, there is an attempted negotiation by the colonel and by Henry to have a truce here.
But you lost.
No, you
Sorry.
lost.
I mean, you released the women when he threatened you a little bit.
Yeah. You definitely lost. Now, while attempting to negotiate this truce, Henry's going to lead a raid on the safe inside the sheriff's office in Lumberton, which is allegedly it contained $28,000 or $584,000 a day. What sheriff's office has that much money in it, and why? That sheriff is dirty as shit. If he has that much money.
I was going to say a corrupt one. That's the type of sheriff that has that kind of money in their safe. A corrupt sheriff who's taking bribes to not arrest people for bullshit he made up anyway.
Yep. So in February 1872, the raid goes off successfully. The gang does escape with what is reported to be $28,000, and they got away free and clear. But shortly after this robbery, Henry promptly disappears. The Lowry family... Yeah, but the Lowry family reports that Henry accidentally shot himself and killed himself when he was attempting to discharge a round that was in his double-barrel shotgun that hadn't gone off. It went off on his face,
and so he was discharging it like that.
Yeah, right.
And then,
see, this is where.
Let me see here. Okay.
Yeah.
That seems unlikely.
Yeah, it's horribly unlikely. I'm calling bullshit on it, which obviously Colonel Francis Wishart also called bullshit on that story and said, yeah, that's all a hoax. There's no way that guy killed himself, even on accident. No. You all are hiding him. And much like most folk heroes in anywhere in the world, his death is highly debated. The official report is that he accidentally shot himself.
I mean, yeah, because that's what they put down, I assume, legally and whatever.
Yep, all that fun stuff.
Of his death, all that.
And he was seen allegedly one more time at a funeral for a gang member several years later.
Oh, was he standing mysteriously behind a tree, in the distance?
Yeah, definitely.
There was a long shot of him, like two members of the funeral procession noticed him.
Outside of
that guy.
Yeah, outside of that, he never turned up in any other court documents. Never turned up anywhere else. Now, granted, this is a time when we don't have photo IDs and fingerprints aren't really a thing. And so, if you wanted to escape, go to the West and change your name. And
yeah, that's all right. If I go ahead and just shave this and this, I don't know who the hell I am.
Yeah,
I wouldn't know who the hell I am.
Yeah, you definitely wouldn't, Johnny. But his wife, Rhonda, swore that up until the day that she died, 1909, that he was alive, happily, he escaped with several of his other gang members. They went out west and lived their life with their $28,000. Now she's going to remarry. Yeah, and he left her because she's going to remarry several years later after he left her. But
I'm sure she's like, why don't you go by yourself?
Yeah,
I'm good. This is some bullshit. I'm tired of dealing with this. A little stressful. Give me some of that money, and then peace out. You can do whatever the hell you want. I don't care.
So that's the mystery of Henry, though. Once he got the $28,000, and it's not a mystery. He got $28,000 with him and his gang, and they fucking hightailed it out of there and went out west. I guarantee you that's what happened.
Seize money for a gold rush.
He's probably one of the other Indian gang members, and I don't know, like
some of the other
one of the other
that we
gangs.
got.
Yeah, you got Jesse James' gang that was out there that had an Indian. In it, I
he
think.
joined.
You had Billy the Kid. I think there was an Indian in the Billy and Kid. Like it was probably one of those guys.
Probably all of them. Probably
both of them. Yeah,
everyone.
Everyone.
He was the only Indian person in a rebel gang that did bad things.
Yep. So I just I like to point out this guy because I saw him on the on a Facebook post, and I thought, you know what, that's good. You don't talk about the southern guys that went on murder rampage against the Confederate rich.
Turns out not all of the traitors were traitors and terrible. That's it for this week in Historic Hindsight. Thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review, and join us next week when we talk about the Gold Confiscation Act.